Hi, and welcome to another episode. I'm Christine, your host. And today we have a really interesting topic. I hear parents talk about this all the time, that their kids will take a bite of something, even say that they love it, and then they won't go back for a second bite. Or they do this for one day, and then the next day it's like they never saw that food and they won't eat it. So, what is the deal with that? Right. So, this is a really interesting topic. I'm going to dive into it. But first, if you're new to my work, you can definitely learn more about how we help parents learn how to get their kids to really enjoy food and go from fearful to foodie. We have an amazing roadmap that we use to, uncover what the issues your child is specifically having. And then we give you a plan on how to help implement and make changes that will work for your child, right? Based on their unique profile. So you can learn more at foodologyfeeding.com. You can even take our quiz to see what type of eater you have at the pickyeaterstest.com. All right. And let's dive into today's topic. Okay. So I don't know if this has ever happened to you. It's definitely happened to me. But when kids just, they don't, there doesn't seem to be a good reason why they won't eat that food. Like they seem to like it. They took that bite, they looked happy, and then they won't try another bite. Like what happened with that? Okay. So I'm going to tell you some of the top things that in working with hundreds of kids at this point, I have noticed that sort of trigger them to stop. Okay. So these are the triggers I have found. Too much excitement or pressure. Okay. So sometimes we'll see our child take a bite and we have this face like we're so excited, like, oh my God, you did it. We're so happy. We're thrilled. Maybe we're clapping or we're saying, "Oh, did you like it? You tried a bite?" Right? So sometimes when you're too enthusiastic, kids feel overwhelmed or even suspicious. And their reaction is to shift focus from the food and usually just like they might drop it. Okay. The other thing that I often see is people pleasing, right? So sometimes they say they like it because they really want you to smile and be happy because they love you. But it doesn't mean that they actually are enjoying it, right? And we'll get to that in a second, why that is. But sometimes it's that people pleasing, right? They weren't even maybe even ready. But they took that bite and you asked them how it was, and they want to give you the answer that they know you want to hear. So they'll say, "Yeah, I liked it," but they didn't really, right? Okay. Another reason, surprise and uncertainty, right? So they took that bite. They really didn't know what to expect. And it just might kind of have caught them off guard. Maybe it wasn't the temperature they were expecting, or the texture, or the taste. And they need just time to process it before they can dive back in and do it again. Right. Especially for a fearful or stuck eater, which are categories in our feeding program. But sometimes it's just too much and they just need that time to process it. And alongside that, right, another thing is that sensory overload, right? It just might be just too intense for their sensory system. Like when we do your sensory profile, we're able to see, you know, how, uh, the different sensory areas are, are they heightened? Are they a little, under, over? Um, so certain things might just have been like a little bit too much of a burst of flavor. um, it might just be the experience of eating something new too. That was just, whoa, sensory system, this is different, right? Almost like goes into fight or flight of different, 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 right? Think about this. If your kids are always the same, their sensory system, their psyche knows what to expect. As soon as something novel or different comes into their system, It's like alarm bells, red flags, something's different, something's happening, shut it all down, right? So sometimes that is really it. Sometimes it's that, if there is that little bit of pressure, they might feel like, oh my gosh, I'm like losing control right now. Maybe they think you're going to make them eat more. And, they just sort of shut down to regain that control back. Okay. But that doesn't mean that there's nothing we can do to help them move from that first bite to the second bite. So now that you know some of those triggers, I'm going to tell you what some of the things we can do to help them move on from that. Okay, so my top one is always stay cool, stay neutral, play it cool. Okay, so what I mean by this is, if you see your child taking a bite, I know inside you are screaming and jumping for joy, but you're outside, got to play it cool. Okay, you got to pretend like this is no big deal, totally cool. Nothing, abnormal happening here. Okay. So, stay calm, or you can just make a casual observation like, oh, you took a bite. Okay. I would leave out comments like, well, what do you think about that? Right. Instead, um, you could just leave it there. Oh, you took a bite. Or you could not say anything at all. Okay. That's one of my favorite things to do. And I'm going to expand on this a bit and say, pair it with a positive. So I've done this many times because I have found, honestly, whenever, even if my son makes a picture or does something by himself, he gets excited, but he also is like almost bracing, like, oh, she's going to get so excited about this. It's too much for me. Um, so I like to play the barely acknowledge it card, and I pair it with a positive. So what I mean by this is a lot of times I will see what he's doing and intentionally, almost like not a distraction, but I will intentionally bring up something funny, or just I might be silly, like, oh, look what I got on my nose. I just put something on my nose. And just to make him laugh, because what I'm doing, it's actually a little bit genius, but well, I think it is that first bite a lot of times can, right? We just said it's met with like that uncertainty and sometimes that fear of like different. So what I'm doing is I'm actually programming him to be like, first bite, oh, I'm laughing. First bite, I'm smiling because mommy made me smile. And yes, I'm smiling about something else. She was laughing, she was being silly, she was talking about something funny, or she said something that reminded me of good memory I had, right? But it was a positive pairing. So when he took that bite, there was something positive that his brain is associating with that first bite. Okay. So I like to pair it with a positive if you happen to see it happen. Okay. Um, what else you can do is acknowledge their reaction. You absolutely can, especially if your child is seeking that praise. Like if they seem like they're very proud of themselves and they want to share this happy moment with you, then yes, absolutely acknowledge that reaction. Maybe playing it cool for that child just isn't going to work, right? So you could say, that was different, huh? Or that was new, right? It just kind of helps them process their feelings, and you're not shutting them down. You're not putting pressure to eat more, but you're acknowledging that they did eat something. And if they say, like, or if they see, like, oh, you know, they're proud of themselves, you could be like, wow, I'm proud of you for being so brave. That was new and different for you, right? So you can absolutely acknowledge that. Um, Now, if it goes the other way and they take that bite and they're like, oh no, this is no good, right? Give them an out. No pressure. It's okay. You don't have to eat more. If you want to, you can, we can wash it away. We can wash it down with some water if that'll make you feel better, right? Because it's new. And we don't want to say, oh, because it didn't taste good. You didn't like it. So we're going to wash it away. No, no, no. We never say that. Okay. So that was different, right? So we could wash it away for now, right? We're not used to it yet. That's okay. We can wash it away. We can take a bite of one of our favorite foods, right? And maybe you have something nearby that you just hand them. Oh, here. Mm, is that better? That tastes like something familiar, right? Right. Well, we'll just wash that flavor away. No big deal, right? You're still calm, you're collected, you're not pressuring them. All good things. This is going to help them feel safe enough, even if it's not that day, to try again in the future, to take that next bite. Okay. We can also help them explore foods in other ways. You know, we don't have to pressure them to eat a food again, but if you think they're likely to interact with it, maybe we can squish it, maybe we can lick it or just smell it again. So we're getting a little bit more exposure to it, but don't have to. Um, if it's not something you were eating, you can pick it up and you can model you trying it, right? So maybe they're going to see your reaction now, right? So that's always good. That's why we like to have family meals together, eating together, because they see you eating those foods. They see your reactions and how you take on those challenges, right? So they might have just picked up a blueberry, popped in their mouth, had a reaction. Now you're going to model and do the same thing. Oh, do you mind if I have one? Okay. Maybe you pick up one, pop it in your mouth. Interesting. Right? Maybe. And you might say, right, this happens all the time, especially with fresh fruit. Sometimes it's sweeter, sometimes it's a little bit more bitter. Ooh, yeah, today these blueberries are a little bit more bitter. Well, that's okay. Maybe the next batch will be better, right? You're modeling that reaction. You're giving them some of the language that they just might be so surprised they don't even know what to do when they taste that first bite. But mom just did it. That was her reaction. She seemed fine. She seemed safe, you know, and it gives them that language of, okay, maybe this one wasn't good, but maybe I can do this again. Maybe we can try it again. Maybe it was just this batch wasn't the best, which happens. I'm going to tell you, we got these oranges and I was on an orange kick for weeks. I was having these clementines and they were so sweet and they were like candy to me, honestly. And then we got a fresh batch and it did not taste like the other batches because it's fruit. That's what happens with fruit. And, my son was watching. I was like, oh, these taste different. This doesn't taste the same as it did. Maybe these are a different variety or maybe they're just not ripe yet. I'm going to let them sit a few more days and see if they'll change, their taste will change a little bit, right? But he saw that and now can internalize that to some degree. And, you know, next time he's presented with something like that, hopefully he will remember. But the more we model that language and speaking it loud of our processing of it, how we processed it. Oh, okay, it was a little bit bitter. Or, ooh, that was super sweet today. Yeah, that was a really, really sweet berry. That surprised me too. Right? It's okay to say what you're feeling. And we want kids to be able to express that because a lot of times, right, I'm sure you've asked them and they're like, why didn't you eat more? Why didn't you like it? I don't know. They don't know what to say about it. But when you start to give them the language, then they're going to be able to give you that language back, right? You got to be that model first for them. Okay. Um, I also want you to do two more things. Number one is celebrate it. Doesn't have to be visually out loud with smiles and fist pumps and high fives. It can be if your child is cool with that, but doesn't have to be. It could be silent on the inside. of you just in your own head saying, that was huge. I can't believe they just did that. That was such a win today. Even if they don't take that second bite today, know that they've made progress. You know why it's progress? They're just a little bit more flexible today. That means they're just a little less afraid to pick up and try new food. And when your kids start to be able to pick up and taste a new food unprompted, that is a sign that they are starting to turn a corner. Okay. That things they're becoming a little bit more flexible. So you want to capitalize on that flexibility by using all of these strategies I'm teaching you today. Okay. The last thing I want you to do is expose them to it again. And that doesn't mean it has to be the same day. It doesn't mean they have to eat another bite. Definitely not. Even if they say, nope, didn't like it, wasn't for me, whatever they said, right? You want to keep it available. You want to keep it nearby throughout the week. You want to keep it on their plate, okay? Even if they said no, 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 you still want to expose them to it, because if they tried it once, they very well may be willing to try it again, especially if you have modeled that processing of it, of how you handled it. Well, today was a little bit bitter, but maybe tomorrow it will be a little bit sweeter. Or, oh, that was a little bit too sweet. But maybe next week when mom gets a new batch, these might taste different, right? So you keep wanting to expose them to it and keep making sure that you are modeling eating and explaining your process of when you take that bite, what it feels like. This was sweet. This was a little tangy. You know what? This was a little bit too bitter. I'm going to wash it down with my water or my juice, because that surprised me a little bit. But being calm about it is really amazing, and it models how they should react, right? You want to be modeling how you kind of want them to react, right? Essentially. Okay. So this approach, it keeps mealtimes low pressure, giving those feelings of safety, which are so key for mealtimes. And all of these things will increase the chances that they will try another bite, but when they are ready. Okay. But by doing these, you've increased the chances of them being ready much sooner than later. So I hope that this was super helpful. I'd love to hear from you. You could also contact us through Instagram or through email at hello@foodologyfeeding.com. I always love to hear from people who are listening if these episodes are helpful. And if you feel like you need a deeper dive and you really want a roadmap of exactly what to do in what order for your child to make them successful, right? Because this strategy, like I said, is for kids who are flexible. They're becoming flexible. They're not in the fearful stage. If you have a child, if you did our pickyeaterstest.com and it said fearful, these strategies are not necessarily going to happen for you for a while, because they're so afraid to put anything new in their mouth. There's a lot of other steps that come before this one. Okay, that's the plus and the downside of free podcast episodes. It's just general advice. It may not be in the right order for you or specific to where your child is at. So if you want a deeper dive, if you want that specific one-to-one guidance about your child, you can contact us at hello@foodologyfeeding to set up your roadmap. Or, you can go on our website under our courses and find our roadmap there. And that is exactly for those families that want that step-by-step guidance. Okay. So hopefully we'll see you there. And if not, I hope this podcast episode was super helpful, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater. To learn more about achieving your child's feeding goals, check out Christine's website at foodologyfeeding.com. And be sure to tune in next time to How to Unpicky Your Picky Eater.